Hello, welcome to Warrington Town Football Club for another episode of The Yellow Show. I'm James Gordon, joined as always by Matthew Turner from the Warrington Guardian. And a bit of news, we're going official.
We are indeed.
We are
indeed going official.
I'm working on a new website for the club, and we're trying to ramp up the media and marketing output of the club next season. So as part of that, The Yellow Show is going to be integrated into the club's channels and the website and stuff. So hopefully we'll try and do it with a bit more regularity than last season. I know we like to witter on a little bit. Maybe we should do some short form.
Yeah, I know it did get a bit.
It's you and that tactics truck.
Yeah, it's me and my obsession with the tactics truck. But I think people liked it, you know.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
we are all about giving the people what they want to.
Well,
what they want.
Of course, I think another point to add as well is that the cool kids tell me that short videos are now the way forward on social as well. So
100%.
If we do a few, I think now after every game next season, 3 or 4 minutes, bit of analysis, bit of instant reaction to the game.
Yeah.
Chris Henshaw over there just wandering into the ground while we're here doing a bit.
Oh, yeah.
So what we're going to talk about in this show, we're just going to have a little bit of a summer sort of recap on the end of the season and then look ahead to the new season as well. I've tried not to think about it too much, but I suppose we'll have to start with the end of last season and the super playoff, or rather the not so super playoff.
Don't make me go there.
Defeat against Kings Lynn Town. So of course, for those of you who've probably forgotten or tried to forget, Warrington went down 3-2 here in extra time, having led 2-1, conceded a penalty 5 minutes from the end, and of course that denied the club promotion to National League North. Matt, what were your thoughts?
Just devastation, really. I mean, I know we've said to each other, haven't we, over the summer? You know, I was just completely disconsolate after that. I didn't want to speak to anyone or anything like that. I didn't want to do anything. It was just the thought of losing never really entered my mind. Everything just seemed stacked in Warrington's favour, and you know, obviously we can't really deny Kings Lynn deserved to win on the day. They were probably just about the better side, and you know, congratulations to them and good luck to them. But you know, it was just. I suppose everyone was talking about South Shields, weren't they? That you know, obviously, you know, everyone before that was saying, "Oh, well, we've got to beat South Shields to go up," and you know, away from home and. But then at the same time, as much as we talk about that, as you know, we beat South Shields away, I don't think it was a complacency thing, was it, the Super Playoff? It wasn't a fact that the players or whatever rocked up thinking they were going to win. I don't think it was that. No, I don't think so. I mean, the South Shields game was monumental. It really was, and it did feel a little bit like they'd climbed to the top of the mountain, and any other season they will have done. You know, that result would have gotten promotion. It makes it sting that a little bit more that, you know, they're going to be the only team to lose out to this super playoff nonsense, whatever you want to call it. But
and as well as the South Shields match, of course, we had the Nantwich game here, which that in itself was a good occasion. Obviously, you know, big crowd here, and coming from a goal down and turn it around with what was, you know, an emphatic win in the end. Especially when you consider what happened 12 months previous against Grantham.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big sort of mental barrier to get over, wasn't it? You know, getting through past the semi-final stage and emphatically so as well. But you mentioned the crowds there. You know, pulled some serious numbers for those games. You know, the 1,600 at the Nantwich game, which obviously we marketed it, of course, and people knew it were happening, but
pretty short notice as well.
It was pretty short notice, yeah, and we still got 1,600 through the gate, and it was an absolutely bouncing atmosphere here. It was one of the best I can remember, certainly. And then we took a great number up to South Shields. A good couple of hundred went up there, and then obviously we pretty much did sell the ground out here against Kings Lynn, and we've pulled some serious numbers in the club over the last sort of few weeks of the season, and the job now is to harness that and keep it going through into next season. And I think they've done a decent job of that over the summer with news of that the majority of the squads sticking around.
I think, you know, obviously with, you know, especially with yourself, the coverage that the club gets now is probably as good as it's ever been, but also it's probably as good as any other, you know, non-league club or club at this level. You know, and like you say, it's getting that average attendance up. I've committed to, you know, so the club have sort of, you know, Toby's got me involved a little bit more from this summer for next season. So obviously I'm part of my remit will be to bring in more bodies and increase that average attendance and importantly increase the revenue, because it has to be said that Warrington probably as a club has been punching above its weight a little bit in terms of when you compare our crowds to Scarborough and South Shields and even Gainsborough to a degree. And especially when you have the disappointment of the last season, the disappointment of the season before, it's credit to Toby, and you've got to keep dusting yourself off, haven't you, and keep going. And of course, 100 more fans coming through the gates every week is going to make a massive difference. Of course, we hear conversations about players that are being looked at, and sometimes there's ones that you think, oh, that'd be really good if you can pull it off, and an extra 10 fans every week might be the difference between signing that striker who might win you the league and stuff like that. So obviously there's interest, and we were talking about this before, weren't we? There's obviously interest in the town, but what can be done to get them people to come? With all due respect to Mickleover at home on a rainy day in November.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you just even looking at it from a human aspect, you've got to make people want to open the curtains on that rainy Saturday in November, open the curtains, see it's chucking it down, and stop them from going, you know what, I'm just going to sit and watch Soccer Saturday today, and that's how I'll get my football fix. We need to somehow make them go, no, do you know what? I will take the short walk down to Cantilever Park and support my local team. And it's, if we had the formula for that, we wouldn't be sat here discussing it, would we? And it's not just a problem that's limited to Warrington. It's you could even say it's a problem higher up the pyramid as well. Everyone wants more fans in and things like that. But we do have a big catchment area here. I mean, I think we're the largest town without a professional football club in the
something
country.
like that, isn't it?
So there's a good base of people who follow football in the town, and it does have great potential.
Yeah, and people always say it's a rugby league town, and I'm not trying to diss the rugby league aspect of things, but I think there's just as many people who like football as there are who like rugby league. I grew up in the town, and none of my mates, I think one of my mates liked rugby and nobody else, everyone else was into football. And, obviously Warrington, the rugby team have obviously grown considerably over the last 15 years. But like I say, with the crowds that you get in them 1,500 and 2,000 for them games, even if you could get half of 1,500 every week, that'd make a massive difference. I think the average last season was 418, was it, something like that? Even if we could nudge that up to 500. 72, say average per head, I don't know, £7. 72, £7. What's that? 500 quid. You know what I mean? It's like
it pays a wage of a good striker.
Yeah, if you get an extra 500 quid every week, it doesn't sound a lot, but ultimately, and then if that person then buys something from the snack bar or buys a shirt or whatever, it all adds up. So yeah, on that there'll be a new website, season tickets will be going live, new kit, blah 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 blah. Looking ahead to next season, I suppose one of the good things is the retention, the amount of retentions. Linking into those crowds as well is that it will be good for the club as a whole to have the familiarity of the players, won't it? The fans will know the majority of the squad come August 17th when we're starting the season again.
100%. You only had to look at the scenes at South Shield. The fans can relate to this group of players. And and the bond between this group of players and the fans is something really quite special. And the fact that a lot of them are sticking around, it can only help with with getting people back through the gates. And I spoke to Paul Carden last week, and I sort of said to him, are you surprised by the amount of people you have been able to keep hold of? I said 100%. He even said he was dreading this pre-season, for having to do a complete rebuild again like he had to do last summer. At this stage, I don't think we had any players committed, did we?
Yeah, because last season you had them players that a lot of players stepped up, didn't they?
Yeah,
went up.
And even the players who have left, your Robbie Evans, your Alex Whittles, they have stepped up to National League North. I mean, obviously Adam Hughes, whether you consider TNS a step up, I don't know, and obviously Marcus Cassani's gone to an environment back at Ashton Athletic where he feels comfortable, but. It's again, players leave here to better things, but a lot have seen the potential here, and they know that staying here could could result in good things for him.
I think like you say, it would have been very hard. I think that was one of my concerns where, when you considered missing out on promotion was, obviously Paul put together a team the season before last that was up there, got to the playoffs, was a bit disappointed, rebuilt a team, was up there again, finished third 2 seasons in a row. It would have been tough for him, and I don't doubt his ability to have done it, but it would have been tough to have to go through that again, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it certainly would have, and it would have got you down as a manager. I mean, no, excuse me, I've no doubt that he'll have been on his phone would have been glued to his ear all summer, regardless. But it would have been even more so had he had no players to work with. But like I said, they start pre-season next Tuesday or something like that, and he's already got the core of a squad together.
Obviously, it's another thing. Paul himself is another consideration in all this because with respect to the Northern Premier League and this level, I'm sure he has ambitions of coaching higher up, and obviously he's had 2 pretty stellar seasons in this division. I'm sure there's whenever the Chester job comes up, there's always a bit of speculation linking him to it, and ultimately Warrington Town is going to have to grow with his ambitions to a degree. Is it a case now then of could you call it third time lucky this season? Is that?
Well, that's the hope for everybody, isn't it? I mean, people have said they could never have a better shot than they did last year, and I can sort of see that. I can sort of see that point, but last year they had to build that familiarity up between that group of players. This year it's already there, so hopefully, in theory, that means they could make a better start and they can hit the ground running and establish a firm base from which to work.
There's no international clearance.
There's no international clearance issues this year. I mean, that robbed them of the likes of Dave Raven and Jack McCrath for the first 5-6 games of the season. If you think if they'd have been in there for even three of those 5-6 games, what difference it could have made. And that's, you do wonder the what ifs when the league was so tight. I mean, they were in with a chance of the title until
Easter Monday.
Until Easter Monday, but it's all what ifs, isn't it? It's about moving forwards now, isn't it?
If there was one area that you felt could be improved, what do you think that is? Because we spoke a lot last year about the issue from the year before was a lack of goals, but then that seemed to be addressed last season. The defence was pretty solid last season, so it's hard to really see where there was a weakness. Yeah,
it is. I mean, I think I really am nitpicking here, but I do still think they could do with more goals. It's strange. I mean, I think Tony Gray was top scorer with 18 last year or something like that. If they had someone who had gone and got the goals of, say, James Walshaw or an Ashley Worsfold or something like that, if someone had gone and got them up to the mid-20s, they could have caught Farsley. I think that predatory striker who only needs one chance might be something they're missing. I mean, that player could come in. Who knows?
Yeah, I suppose. You look at the game. I suppose the 3 games maybe that you look at. Hensford away was one that Toby always used to mention to us, didn't he? When we were on a good run at that time, and I mean, even Matlock at home when we lost 1-0 to Matlock here, and that was the end of the run, wasn't it? Of the clean sheets run. The 2 Stafford games were the other ones for me that certainly the one here with the red card for Garrity was unfortunate, and then obviously to then draw away as well. That was effectively 5 points that you probably would have had down as as points you should have got.
You're looking at Staley Bridge here as well, where we pummeled their goal for at least the whole second half and only got a 0-0. Whitton here as well. Again, another game that finished 0-0 that they arguably should have won. And they do all add up, don't they? And I don't know. I mean, the striking options are pretty good as they are. I mean, obviously we all know what Tony Gray can do. We all know what Josh Amos can do. I think personally he's got a big pre-season coming up. Josh Amos, if he can get him fit and in shape, because there was that sort of couple of month period either side of the new year.
He's going to give you grief on the bus for saying this.
He is. And if you're watching, which I'm sure you are, sorry, Josh, but there was that period after after sort of the turn of the year where he was unstoppable for 2 months. And
well, did he finish on, what did he finish on, 12, something like that?
I think it might be 13.
But like, obviously, bear in mind that he only scored one until like Christmas, didn't he? So it's like 100%. If he's one of them, if you could sort of see if he scores first game of the season. It's almost one of them, isn't it? You know, he's that sort of player. He's
a confidence player, isn't he? Yeah, he is.
Looking elsewhere, obviously, like you say, a lot of retentions, not really much in the way of departure. Obviously, one big hole in the team at the moment is that left back, because both the left backs from last season have gone. I suppose you could make the argument that, you know, maybe Adam Carden could play there at a push. What do you think? What do you think's going to happen? We've talked. We were talking about Josh Askew, who's just gone to Curzon Ashton. Rory McKeown's name's being bandied around a little bit because he's been released by Green at Morton. You'd imagine he'll probably get a full-time gig somewhere. That's presumably a focus, I guess, of Cards, and obviously we know that they're sort of looking around for a striker as well.
Yeah, I think left back is a key focus. I say if they can get Rory McKeown back, that'd be unreal. I mean, I think we had discussions after the Kings Lynn game, didn't we, about their left back Fraser Blake Tracy, who was by far the best player on the pitch.
He's signed for Peterborough,
and he's now signed for Peterborough, which you know shows how impressive he is.
Shows our knowledge as well.
It shows our knowledge as well. But no, I think we were talking to Toby, weren't we? He may have been the best left back I've seen down here, but Toby was adamant no. Rory McKeown.
Well, I mean, if you look at McKeown as well, it was him. Remember, he got sent off here, and that sort of derailed the playoff. He got a really harsh red card, didn't he, down here, and obviously that meant he missed the Grantham game in the playoffs. And you know, obviously, we were handsomely beaten by Grantham, but you never know in those situations. But quite important, I suppose, to get that balance, to get the left back in, especially when you look at how good the defence was last season.
Yeah, and everything's still in place. You know, right back's well covered. You know, I think the last few games Sean Bailey was used there, and that's the position that he's made his name in at right back. I mean, I know he featured a lot in centre midfield, and he may be required to do that again next year. But if he doesn't play there, we've got Mitch Duggan who can play there. But at the minute, left back is a bit of a hole. Centre midfield as well. I know Ben Garrett's signed up, which is an absolutely colossal piece of business. It really is. I know the sort of clubs that were after him, and they were big clubs, and he could have made a good living there, and I'm sure he probably still will at some point down the line. But the fact that he's decided to stay is fantastic. Well, they need someone to come in and play alongside him and free him up a little bit. I think
age is on his side, isn't it? It's one of them, and you know it's good for the club that he stayed. I mean, like I say, if he has another good season this season, you know, there's nothing to say that he couldn't get that step up, you know, next summer potentially, or you know, might even step up with Warrington. Who knows? We've had a discussion about Russ Benjamin. We like Russ.
I like Russ as a player.
He's got a big pre-season ahead of him, really, because you know he's got a chance really to start the season in the number 4 shirt, and it's whether he gets to that, whether he's going to be at that level.
Yeah, I mean, I felt for Russ for the Kings Lynn game, because obviously he was brought on to do a job which was to shore things up, because at that point when he came on, there was 10 minutes to go, and they looked pretty comfortable in defending that lead. I mean, Kings Lynn weren't really getting through, but you know he played a part in the penalty. I think he gave the ball away quite cheaply, and they obviously ended up winning the penalty off Robbie Evans, and then he gave away a cheap corner in extra time that they ended up scoring from. So it was unfortunate on that front. But I do like Russ as a player. I do like what he brings. He's very good on the ball. He's deceptively quite strong as well. He's not easily pushed off it. So if he were to start the season in that number 4 shirt, I'd certainly have no complaints.
You know, and obviously he's been around the group for a long time. Obviously, I think he's been around since October last year. So, you know, obviously everyone knows he's been in training. The situation you mentioned, Sean Bailey, the situation with Mitch Duggan's quite interesting, because obviously he was pretty much a mainstay at right back up until maybe the last 2 months of the season. You know, whether that's, you know, what that was down to, whether it was form or whether it was something else, you know, we're not too sure. Is it a case of, do you think Bailey will more than likely start in the 4 and Mitch will play right back?
Quite possibly. I think if the season was to start tomorrow, I think that's what may happen. I think because I think Mitch Duggan's a perfectly capable right back. Don't get me wrong. He did a solid enough job for most of the season. But I think in an ideal world there would be another centre midfielder in, and Sean Bailey would start right back, because he gives you that he gives you that extra experience, and I think he gives you a bit more going forward as well.
Yeah, I mean, I like Mitch. I like Sean Bealey. I think Bealey gives you a bit more grunt, doesn't he? He's a bit more of a. I'm not saying that Mitch isn't horrible to play against, but I wouldn't like to play against Sean Bealey because he just strikes me as one of them players that
he never leaves you alone. Does he? He never gives you a spare minute.
And I mean, obviously, like right back's quite well off at right back. What do you think about Alex Byrne? I can't really remember him from the Gainsborough games, but where do you think he's going to end up playing?
Well, I've having conversations with Cards about him. He's not even ruled out Byrne playing at right back because he's played there before, and obviously he's a winger by trade, so he'd be a naturally quite attacking right back. Whether that means you play Bealey right wing and something like that, so he could give you that security if Byrne gets round him. But I think if I was in Paul Carden's shoes, I'd be playing in right wing where he can.
And then would you put McCreth through the middle?
I wouldn't rule out using McCreth through the middle because I think his pace frightens teams. It really does, and it helps stretch.
Do you think if teams. I mean, obviously we're assuming a striker will be brought in, but do you think that could McCreth be the solution to the striker problems? Because you could imagine Amos and McCreth playing alongside each other in a traditional 4-4-2, couldn't you? And I know obviously. I know we tend to play with Tony Gray withdrawing a little bit, but you could see legs, couldn't you, in an Amos McCreth partnership?
Yeah, it's your classic big man, little man, isn't it? You got Amos there who'll hold the ball up and win the flick-ons, and then McCreth he'll play on the shoulder of the last man and run in behind. And I won't be surprised for Town fans. Don't be surprised to see that sort of trialled in the pre-season games because I think Jack McCreth is a genuine option to play through the middle.
Is the fact that we've got so many players, well, not so many players, but obviously Tony Gray, he's not an out-and-out number 9, is he? He's more of a withdrawn, sort of plays in that sort of false 9 position, doesn't he? Yeah. Bowen Dixon's sort of a bit like that as well, isn't he? He likes to play in that sort of area. Yeah. And the problem is because you've got two players who are so good at playing there, it means that it's very difficult for you to play them and play two strikers, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think we saw that a little bit in the Super Playoff. Bowen was obviously brought in to play just off Tony Gray, and you do sort of find that, as you said, they both like to come deep, and you've got no real presence up there, and Bowen was pretty much marked out of the game for that Super Playoff, but we know Bowen's capable of some wonderful things on his day, and I know there was a sort of a 5-game run just before Christmas where he again was pretty much unplayable, and he does sort of bring you that unpredictability and that sort of maverick edge that I think you could do with if you want to unlock sort of stubborn defences.
Yeah, and the thing with Bowen and to a degree Josh Amos is that that they're not going to play. I mean, maybe Dylan fits into this sort of scenario as well. It's not about the 11 on the pitch, is it? It's about the 16, 17. And obviously, you're conscious that you don't want players who are, as much as, you want to have a settled team, you're conscious that you want to keep quality players for when things are going wrong, that you can change it up a bit. And I suppose one player that maybe there's a question mark over, not in terms of his ability, but more in terms of is he going to be happy sat on the bench, is Conor McCarthy, because he came in from Runcorn Linnets where he was the number 9 every week, he was banging the goals in, he came here, he scored a couple, I think, was it Bamber Bridge here? January, but then struggled to get regular games. We're sat here talking about recruiting a striker. Is Conor McCarthy sat there thinking, well, what about me?
I hope so, because it could be the sort of boost he needs. If he hears things about we're looking at signing another striker, hopefully that flicks a switch in his head and saying you've got one right here, and you've got one that's good enough to play at this level. I mean, undoubtedly he's got a lot to prove. I'm sure he'll think that as well. But he's another one. It's a big pre-season for him. I hope he comes in. I hope he comes in sharp, and I hope he comes in focused. And because if he can get a run in the side, and if he can prove himself, there's undoubtedly a player in there, because he's quick, he's strong, he's got genuine pace, and we have seen he can score goals, but he's doing it on a regular basis at this level, isn't it?
I think the thing that most interests me about McCarthy is the fact that he's he's got this second chance. Not a second chance because he's done anything wrong, but I mean, he's been at the club previous, obviously on loan, and then he's just floated around. He stepped down with Runcorn, he stepped back up here. So I think the fact that Paul's brought him to the club twice would suggest that there's something there that they feel like they can get out of.
Yeah. Paul definitely sees something in him, like I say. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought him back. So it'll be definitely an interesting pre-season watching, seeing how he gets on, I think.
So looking ahead then to pre-season, I'll have to try and remember off the top of my head. The first game, Skelmersdale, isn't it, away?
Yeah.
But the home ones that we're most interested in, the big one, Accrington Stanley, coming here on a Monday night, I think it is July 22nd, something like that. That'd be an interesting one. I was surprised actually that Toby's not had the sign made to go outside, because he's always saying to us that it's all about the name on the board on the outside. And and Accrington's a name that probably everybody in Warrington who follows football will have heard of.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they're an established League One side now. Obviously, they did really well to stay up last year, and hopefully they'll bring a strong side. I mean, having a look at their pre-season schedule, it's pretty hectic.
They play Marseille, don't they? Which is sensational.
They do play Marseille, I think, a couple of days before, which is pretty sensational, and fair play to them for pulling that off. But hopefully they bring a decent side down. Hopefully they bring a decent number of fans down.
Yeah.
And it would be good to see how they stack up against the team from that level.
And I suppose it sounds daft, but Accrington were at Warrington's level. Accrington went from the Northern Premier League in the 90s and worked their way up, and obviously eventually won the conference and then won League Two, and got up into League One, and obviously came pretty close to even going beyond that. Still got the same manager. Well, he went to your club briefly.
He came to Rochdale for a bit.
But yeah, I sat with him at a dinner recently, actually, John Coleman, and in many ways, it's like you look at Accrington Stanley and what they've got, and it's like, well, there's no reason really why we couldn't achieve that at Warrington Town.
It's the sort of thing you kind of have to aspire to. I mean, it comes back again to the sort of catchment area. Accrington is a small town, certainly in comparison to Warrington, and they've obviously Andy Holt, the owner of Accrington's he's got a fair bit of money behind him, and he's spent a fair bit in getting Accrington to where they are. But you look at the setup at Accrington, and it shows they've been on the same sort of journey that Warrington are currently on, and it shows it can be done, and it's a model to aspire to for clubs like Warrington for sure.
Do you think that if Warrington were to ever get League Two or National League, that it would be Paul Cardinal would be the manager?
I think as long as Paul's the manager, they've got the best possible chance. I think some managers just seem to fit some clubs. I mean, John Coleman, for instance. I mean, it never really worked for him at Rochdale for various sort of reasons. But at Accrington, it just works, And it's like Jose Mourinho at Chelsea, well, for a little bit. Some managers just fit certain clubs, and Paul's a great fit for Warrington, isn't he? And who knows? There's nothing to say he can't take Warrington on that sort of journey if he sticks around long enough. But as you mentioned before, if he does well enough, there's gonna be people wanting him. And
yeah, I mean, we sort of felt like it was a massive missed opportunity losing the playoff game, and obviously everyone, it goes without saying, doesn't it, really? But then at the same time, we could be sat here in a year's time and might have made that jump, and it's all on and everyone's happy. You can't really criticise anyone for last season, because they won the playoffs, which, like you say, would have in any other year enabled you to go up. How difficult is it going to be then to replicate last season, or potentially go one or two better?
Very difficult, I think. If you look at the teams that are coming back in from above, Ashton United, you hear all sorts about the kind of budget that they have in order to get them straight back up to the National League North. FC United, who are a genuine big club at this level, with a huge fan base, they should be up there. South Shields have gone to the sort of hybrid, flirting with full-time football model, and they're, that it's a unique way that South Shields play, and it will get them up there. Scarborough are going to be strong. Baseford are throwing money at it again. You've got the likes of Matlock, Hyde, Stalybridge, who are making some decent signings. So things are looking good elsewhere, but things are looking good here as well. And a lot of teams will, they'll fear what Warrington have got, and they'll be envious of what Warrington have got, and I expect them to be pushing for the playoffs again, but it's going to be a tough season. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, last season was a bit surprising. I can't remember if you were with me when we had the conversation with Toby about this time last year, where obviously lost the playoffs, cut the budget. Toby was sort of like, well, we're thinking mid-table. If we can squeeze to the 5, then we'll be happy. Whereas ultimately Warrington were in this top 3 teams, which were considerably ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that last season they might maybe overachieve from where they thought they would be. To pick up on a few things, Scarborough, everyone forgot about them last season because they fell away miserably. If they get it together, they're going to be a serious force, I think. Gainsborough are looking like they've got things together again. They're obviously dead keen to get back up, as everyone is. Based, like you say, is another one where they're chucking a bit of money at it. I suppose it's just going to be proofs in the pudding. We're not sure when the fixtures are out. We think middle of July. I've said I think the best possible game we could get, FC United at home, first game. I think for me that to build on how we ended last season. You could imagine us having FC United here and pulling 1,000 in.
Oh, 100%. At the very, very least. At the very least, because there's FC United have a big fan base, as we discussed, and it's not far from to travel, so they'll travel in numbers, no doubt, and 1,000 should be the least they should be looking at for an opening day fixture against FC United, I think. So that'd be dream world ideal fixture, but you just know you're going to get someone like Grantham away or something like that.
Well, we were at home last season, weren't we? So presumably we'll be away. I don't know how it works. I don't know how they work it out, but who knows? So yeah, keep an eye out on the fixtures. Keep an eye out for season ticket news. Keep an eye out for kit news as well. Please do leave your comments and your likes and whatever else. If you want to see us, if you got any ideas or want to see us do anything or talk about anything on the show, please do let us know. Matt, thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll see you again very soon.